Hello and welcome to my Getting Started Guide to Minecolonies. In this series, I'm going to go through absolutely everything you'll need to know to make an amazing colony. And even if you've played a lot already, you still might learn a few tips and tricks to make life easier in the mod. But first, what is Minecolonies? Well, it's a mod that's often included in a lot of mod packs, like all the mods, for example. And it's a mod that lets you build a village into a town, into, if you want to, a whole city. You recruit NPCs to come live and work in your colony and give them jobs to gather, craft, or defend it. There's research trees, raids, and a whole bunch of really cool looking buildings that your colonists build for you when you ask them to. And if you're still confused, I have a very long series based in Minecolonies where I go through finding a start location all the way to getting every single building to level 5 and having 200 members of my colony. So do be sure to check that out. But let's jump into the guide now and talk about getting started in Minecolonies. Now, the first thing you need to know before you get going with Minecolonies is what mod pack are you using and what version of Minecraft are you playing in? Some of the older versions of Minecolonies for older versions of Minecraft aren't quite as updated as the newer ones. But I do definitely recommend playing Minecolonies as part of a mod pack because the mod itself works really well with other mods and it can really enhance the experience. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is pick a starting location, and this is arguably one of the most important choices you will make, because once you start to build your colony, it becomes very difficult to move it. So you really do need to make the right choice. Now, if you're playing with other mods, one thing you need to watch out for when you pick a start location is that the ground isn't made up of too many different types of rock, ore, and soil. And, well, what do I mean by that? Well, basically, you only really want things from Minecraft in the biome that you start with. For example, andesite, granite, diorite, and cobblestone are all very important. But if you have mods that add lots of different types of cobblestone, like limestone, or lots of weird and wacky ores, it's going to make storage a little bit harder because you'll have all these extra things filling up your warehouse. So my number one piece of advice first up is find a biome or a start location that is mostly just vanilla building blocks to get going with. Now, the number two thing you're going to need to think about when picking a start location is, does it have access to water? There's a fisherman's hut in Minecolonies that's quite important to the game and the system, so you're really going to want to build your colony with access to a body of water. Now, it doesn't have to be an ocean, it can be a river, and if you have absolutely no water at all, you can even make your own man-made pond for the fisherman's hut later on. So don't worry, it's not essential, but ideally you're going to want to have some kind of coast or river. And the one thing I will advise is that you build your colony with access to the sea, because fisherman's huts that are on ocean biomes do produce slightly better loot. Now, the third thing to think about when you're picking a location for your first colony is the area flat or hilly? Now, this doesn't really matter, but if you have a flat area to build your colony on, you're going to have a much easier time. However, if you want to build in the hills, like I did on my playthrough, or in the thick of a forest, you can create a nice looking colony because flat areas can be a little bit boring. And now the fourth and final consideration about where you build your starting colony is the kind of raiders you're going to get. Now, raiders will spawn on the outside of your colony, and the biome that they spawn in dictates what kind of raider they are. So, if raiders spawn on the edge of your border in a taiga, you're going to get Nordic Vikings. If they spawn in the desert, you're going to have Egyptian mummies attacking your village. But this can be pretty cool because pharaohs have a magical staff that they can drop, and it counts as a ranged weapon, which means that your archers in your colony can use them. If the raiders on the edge of your colony spawn in a large body of water, they'll become pirates. They spawn with their own ship, the ship has spawners on it, and you'll get a steady stream of pirates attacking your colony. But they do go away once you break the spawners, or after 3 in-game days, the pirate ship sails away. Now, if the raiders spawn in a jungle biome, that's when you're going to get Amazonian warriors attacking your borders. And they're really cool. They are actually quite deadly though, because they shoot spears. So overall, I think Amazonians are the most dangerous raiders I've had to deal with. And lastly, if there's a biome that the game doesn't know what it is, or if it's any other biome I haven't covered, you're going to get barbarians. And they're pretty simple. They just have axes and bows. Very basic raiders, probably the easiest to deal with. So here we go. Now, this isn't the perfect starting location, but I've basically picked a nice bit of relatively flat land for me to demonstrate what happens next, because you've picked your starting location. What is the next step? Well, we're going to have to build either a supply camp or a supply ship. So here we are. Now, for demonstration purposes, I've turned off shaders, so the game should look probably more like the game you're going to be looking at home. You can configure shaders, but it can be a bit difficult to get them to work. So we have a kind of simple start location here. It's pretty flat and great for our demonstration purposes. We've got a nice body of water over there that's going to be great for a fisherman's hut down the line. And in my hotbar, you can see we've got both a supply camp and a supply ship. A supply camp is very easy to make. You only need 5 chests of any kind. And likewise, a supply ship uses 5 boats. However, in this version you can see we can't craft it. However, in some versions of Minecolonies with some mod packs, you can craft the boat as well to start with. So the first thing we're going to do is look at some of these camps. If I right click here, I'll get a UI that shows me a rough outline of the building I want to create. And this is basically how building in Minecolonies works. You go to put down a building, it gives you a rough outline so you can place it accurately. And you can move it around with these controls like you see here. The blue arrows move them in the different directions. And that's relative to the way you're facing. So as you can see, this is forwards and backwards while we're facing this way. But if we come over this side, the blue arrows push it backwards and forwards like this. So it's always relative to the way you're facing. So, a supply camp. Now, what you want from a supply camp is basically a base of operations. This is going to be a safe place to hide from monsters, but it's also going to give you a whole bunch of items. Now, most buildings in Minecolonies need builders to build them. However, the camps and ships are very different. They come pre-packaged and instantly built. Now, the other tools here are these circular arrows that let you flip around and rotate the supply camp and any other building. The minus lowers, the plus raises, and this weird button in the middle lets you flip. And what that does is basically mirror the structure in the opposite direction. And the button here on the top left lets you switch pack. And this is probably the most important thing you can do with your supply camp. So basically there are a lot of styles of building in Minecolonies, and what it's usually good to do is pick one style and stick with it. You can mix and match, but different styles have different requirements. For example, if you're near to a lot of oak trees and you want a medieval style colony, then medieval oak is a great style, one that I've gone for in my playthrough. Caledonia is a very tricky mix of all kinds of woods and stones, but it looks really cool. Cavern was previously known as True Dwarven, and it's kind of like an underground, stony kind of dwarven city look that can look really cool. Very stone heavy. So basically what I like to do is base my choice around what's near to me. But with the supply camp it doesn't really matter. And the important thing is, with supply camps, depending on the style that you choose, you get a really different set of starting items. What do I mean by that? Well, let me show you first the basic medieval oak camp. So I'll select this, and here we go. We get a kind of medieval oak wagon, a tent, an armor stand. It looks pretty cool. You get some interesting items here. We'll just move it into an easier to spot location. Press the tick down here on the bottom right. Oh, no, hang on a sec. We've got some problems. Aha, yeah, not a solid. And this block over here needs air above it, so we have to move this to a different location. Now, these requirements only happen with the camps and ships because they're made when you build the building. Other buildings are built by builders, and if there's a problem with the area that you've built it on, the builders will fix it for you. They'll put down dirt, they'll dig up dirt, they'll modify and terraform an area to fit your building. So down here on the beach looks like a perfect location. It's very flat, it's very easy to see what we're missing. We'll lower it, and all of this looks correct. Now we'll press go, And bam, it's been placed. Welcome to Minecolonies. Now that you have your supplies, how about searching a nice location to place your town hall to create a colony? So let's take a look at this camp. It's got some racks. These are great chest replacements because they're freaking huge. It's got an armor stand with some basic starter armor. Fantastic. There's a campfire, a barrel. Inside the tent we have things like a bed so we can skip the night. A barrel over here. That's got the two most important things you'll need, the build tool and the town hall, and and some paper as well, and we'll talk about these two things in a second. There's a book, a map, a bed, bookshelves, amazing. And then if you go over here to the wagon, there's even more valuable supplies that come in handy for building your first buildings. Got some tools in here, and in the barrels, things like stone, water bottles, oak logs. There's some hay here, food, more oak logs, and that's about it. Pretty basic, but perfect to get going with. Now, what I mean is, some camps have way better options. So if we come over here instead, and what we're going to do now is try placing down one of the Space Wars camps. Now, Space Wars is supposed to be like Star Wars. It's a very futuristic-y, Tatooine-y desert build. But it's very tricky and nothing I would suggest for players new to Minecolonies. So look at this. I think it's supposed to be like a Jawa sand crawler. Very cool. But when I place this down, there are very different blocks in this build. So on top of all the regular blocks, you get things like blocks of iron here. There's a piston. There's some prismarine walls and a dispenser. In the rack over here, you get the build tool and a town hall. Now, every single supply camp and supply ship will start with a town hall and a build tool because you need those to get going. But inside the sand crawler itself, there's a whole bunch of wool. And upstairs, you've got some charcoal. There's some birch logs. Even more food, including bread and chicken. And over here you have a hopper and some droppers and dispensers. There's loads of really cool, really useful stuff. However, it doesn't look very medieval, so it might not suit your playthrough. Now, all kinds of different supply camps have very different starting items. So I do encourage you to experiment and try out all of them until you find one that you like. But I will cover one more, which is going to be the fortress style. So here we go, the Fortress Style Camp, the last one that we're going to look at. Now, Fortress Style is a very unique style. It's not like the other building styles in Minecolonies, where you can kind of put whatever building wherever you want. And there's a sign that explains that here. It says, place your Fortress Style Town Hall where 4 chunks meet, F3 and G. And so what it means by that is, if you hold down F3 and press G, it will show you where the borders of a chunk are, right? And it says, place your town hall where 4 chunks meet. So a spot like this, basically, where 4 chunks meet. And why does it ask you to do that? Well, because Fortress Style doesn't let you build buildings all around and connect them with roads if you want to, place them down however you like. Fortress Style is its own unique type of building, in where your whole colony is one big fortress and all of the hallways and the roads, the gaps in between buildings, link up to form corridors of a giant fortress. It's a very unique style that's interesting to play as. But again, just like Space Wars, nothing I would advise for your first playthrough, but definitely, if it's your second or third time playing Minecolonies, give it a try. So yeah, what's the deal with the Fortress Style camp? Well, unlike the other camps, this one has loads of really cool materials. Look at this, it gives you a whole set of armor, weapons and shields. Some furnaces, the racks are absolutely dripping with food and materials, coal, like you'd be used to. However, it also has things like paintings, more bookshelves. If we go up a level, it's got a bell. This is useful later on in the building. It's got, of course, as you'd expect, a town hall and a build tool, but it's also got a cactus in a pot. It's got all of the different types of sapling, like acacia, oak, dark oak, etc. It's got bamboo. But also, hidden away in the corners, there's items like this block of gold. There's a barrel here with, again, all the different tree sapling types and sugarcane, cocoa beans. And over here a block of coal. So yeah, in general, it just has a lot more going on than the other camps. Also, it's got these bins that you can use if you have some bone meal. As a very simple dark oak tree farm. Because dark oak is predominantly the type of wood used in the fortress style, it's a great way to get started. But like I said, do mix and match and experiment with different camp styles, because you might want to have something that you keep right the way until the end of your colony, so that you can remember your humble beginnings and keep something right until the end. And when all the buildings are level 5, you can look back at your humble little camp in the corner of your colony and think, yeah, I came from that. Now, much in the same way that it's tricky to place down a camp because you need the grounds to be exactly like the game wants it to, you have the same problem with boats. You get the same tools as usual, but the game does expect you to put this on water, and if you can't find water, you can't place down the boat. Also, you need that water to be clear, so if there's any kelp underneath your build, it won't place until you've removed the kelp. Luckily enough, there's not much here. Now, just like with the camp, if you right-click into air with the block, you can switch the pack style and pick a different boat. And there's a lot of really cool boats. The Caledonian boat is actually an airship, which can be a very cool way to start your game. The Cavern pack, or True Dwarven pack, gives you this giant stone boat that I don't know if it would float, but it's got some very cool items on it. The Fortress boat, however, is, well, it's just like a raft, like a dinghy. But in the preview, you do get a sneak peek at what you're going to get when the building is built. But again, just like before, the Space Wars boat has a lot of cool futuristic high-tech stuff that the others just don't. So if you don't mind it looking ugly, this can be a great choice to get going with. Yeah, take a look at this. So it does look very futuristic. It's a bit birchy, not my kind of style. But yeah, the whole thing is dripping in glowstone. Very valuable. You've also got these redstone comparators, very advanced tech that's going to come in really handy later on. And same as supply camps, all of the supply ships have a town hall and a build tool. Now, I've placed down several supply camps and a supply ship because I'm in creative mode. However, if you're playing in survival, the game will not let you put down more than one supply camp or ship. So choose wisely, my friends. So now we have our build tool and our town hall, we're ready to get on to the next steps of building our first colony. So come with me into the next episode where we go over the first steps once you've placed a supply camp. Now let me know in the comment section which of the build styles you think is the coolest. Also, if you've enjoyed the video, let me know in the comment section and also give me a like and maybe even subscribe. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.